Welcome to our Italian menu or meal, if you like. Now we're going to have some pasta. So we're going to make some pasta in a minute, and in fact we're going to make green pasta. We're going to make some green pasta ravioli with mozzarella. So no meat in this tonight. Strictly speaking, not vegetarian, certainly not vegan, because we're using mozzarella. But even so, you could substitute something else if you wanted instead. Obviously we're going to be putting eggs in as well into the pasta. But anyway, we're making green pasta ravioli with mozzarella. And then there's a sauce to go with it, which we'll do later. But one of the important things is that your pasta dough needs to rest for at least an hour. You need to chill it for at least an hour. 3 hours is good, right? Anything under an hour, it doesn't work quite so well. And we're going to be using a pasta machine to roll some sheets as well. There's going to be bloody flour everywhere. Anyway, let's get back to our green bit. Our green bit is going to be with spinach. Now we're going to want about 75 grams of pureed spinach. So I've got, well, more than 75 grams here. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to chuck it into some water. I've got a pan on to boil, and then drain it. So when it's cooled, squeeze the moisture out of it, chuck it in the old Nutri Ninja, and turn it into a puree. Okay. So we can't actually make our pasta until then, but you want 300 grams of flour. Now you can use proper Italian double O flour, 00 if you want, or you can just use ordinary plain flour, that's fine. Two eggs, pinch of salt, and then, like I say, about 75 grams of this. Now we shouldn't need to add any water, but if we do, if it's too dry, we'll add a little bit of water. If it's too sticky, we add a bit of flour, but we'll play it by ear. But anyway, at the minute, that's what you need to get prepared. So once that's up to boil, I should be shoving the spinach in and cooking it off for a few minutes until it's cooked. Okay. Right, our ravioli, our spinach is cooked. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dump that into a colander, drain it off. Now at this stage, what we'd like to do is obviously squeeze all the moisture out of it, but I ain't doing that because it's bloody hot. So I'm just going to let that cool and drain off as much as I can. Okay. I'm just beginning to think, to be honest, I think the amount I've got in here, probably trying to put it in that Nutri blender and blend it up is going to be a bit pointless, be a bit lost in there. So I'm going to grind this up in a mortar and pestle. If you've got a little smaller blender, like I say, the trouble is with this, it's the blade sits so high, that unless you've got a decent quantity in there, it ain't really going to do much. So I'm going to grind this up into a puree in the mortar and pestle. So like I say, I'm just going to let this cool, okay, and then we'll puree it. Right, so what I've been doing with the spinach is grabbing small handfuls, cooled down enough now that I can do that, grabbing a little portion and then just squeezing out a lot of that moisture that's still in there. Alright, so like I say, we want a puree, but we don't want it wet through. So I've already done the rest of it. Okay, so I'll put that in there. Let's get this out of the way. So what we're now going to do is we're now going to pound that up. I was going to use me new Mexican molcajete, but I think you get a little bit lost in that as well. Right. So I'm just going to keep on grinding this up to try and make it into a puree. Okay. we'll weigh out, make sure we've got 75 grams of that, and I've weighed out my flour already. Okay, 300 grams of that. Got my eggs ready, got a bit of spare flour needed for kneading, and I've got my salt. So once I've got this sorted, I'll come back to you. Okay, so I've got my about 75 grams of pureed cooked spinach. Now, just to give you a little heads up, I put about 120, 130 grams of spinach into the pan, and that just made enough. So obviously, because we squeezed all the moisture out of it. Now, there's my 300 grams of flour. So we'll make a little well in the middle. Okay, and into that, I'm going to tip my 2 eggs. Okay, and then what I should get is a fork. Can't beat a good fork. Okay, just to split my yolks up and to help incorporate that into the flour. And there we go, it's starting to leak everywhere already. Once I've got this stopped spreading, we will then start incorporating the spinach. So in that goes. So now it's just a matter, to begin with, of trying to get it all mixed together. Okay, so starting with the fork, and then get your hands dirty. Okay, now the spinach has obviously got to be mixed thoroughly all the way through it. So we want to get it all mixed in together to begin with. Okay, and then we'll be doing some kneading. Oops, there you go. I told you we get flour. If you wait till we use the pasta machine, it's better get the Hoover on standby, I think. Because it's going to get flour everywhere. So I'm just going to carry on incorporating this for a bit, and then once we start the kneading process, I'll come back to you. Okay, so I've got it all combined. So now what we're going to do, we're going to do a one-handed knead. Okay, and we're just going to do this for about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, where we want to end up with a nice uniform, where possible, green. It's obviously going to have specks of darker green in it, but what I mean is get rid of all them plain sort of floury bits, and the dough will come nice and sort of elasticy, if you like. So it's not too sticky. Like I say, if it got too sticky, we add a little bit more flour. If it was too dry to do any of this, then we just simply add a bit more water. Or add a bit of water, we haven't had any yet, haven't we? I mean, as I'm doing this, this is getting a little bit stickier, but that'll be all right. Okay, so I'm going to do this for about 10 more minutes, and then that will be essentially the pasta dough ready to, like I say, chill, rest until this evening, when we will make the ravioli. So aside from getting the flour off the floor, that's my mess cleared up as well. Right, now I'll point out, by the way, you know, this is for Italy, this is for you, Mr. S, my good old Italian friend. And he's, well, I don't know if he likes to be thought of as a honorary Italian, his partner, okay, but it's for you as well. Right, I'm just getting kneading. I'll show you the exciting phase when we wrap it. Right, so there's my dough, nicely uniform nice and elastic. So I've just roughly shapen it into a little slab, And then, like I say, we're going to wrap it in some film, cling film, and then this goes into the fridge. Now, it needs to really treading that flour. That should be on at me. I got bloody flour all over the place. Anyway, this wants to be chilled for at least half an hour, preferably a minimum of an hour, but any longer is better. In fact, you can use this for up to 2 days after it's been in the fridge, right? So that's our pasta dough done for tonight. So I will catch you later when we turn this into a ravioli. Okay, it's time to get rolling out the pasta. Sorry about the door. The only way I can get my pasta machine onto my worktop is open a cupboard door. I shall probably keep banging that all night, as I actually said to the bishop. So my pasta's been in the fridge chilling. Okay, now before we unwrap it, this is going to want plenty of flour. I've got the Hoover outside because I'm going to end up getting flour everywhere. Now, want plenty of flour, okay, because we're going to be making various strips. Because obviously my workspace is quite limited, it's going to make long strips, so we're going to have to keep cutting it. Okay, we want to make sure this is where it's already starting to go all over the floor. You set your pasta machine at its widest setting, right? And we're then going to make sure our dough, because it feels a little bit damp having been in the fridge, but we're going to make sure our dough is nicely floured, okay, all over. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it through the pasta machine. I'll close it out, put the out in, and we're going to roll it and like I said, the trouble we've got here, my work surface, not quite long enough. Okay, so I'll cut it. So there we've got our first run through. Now at this point we then close it down to the next notch. Okay, but we want to make sure our strip is thoroughly, what's named again? And the texture of this is sort of like breaking up a little bit. That's partly because of the spinach in it. Okay, anyway, back through it comes again. Now, when you get a fair bit through, you can concentrate more on holding this end. Okay, so there we go, that's that strip done again. Now feed the next one in. Oh, crying out loud! This should drive me mad. I ain't had a drink yet. Well, I haven't had a beer, but that's because you watch football. Streaming it. And we won 6-0. Usually you get one or 2-0 up, and then it's like, oh well, we might as well go and have a cup of tea. Oh look, the other team have scored. Oh, they've scored some time and won. But we didn't this time. We won 6-0. So I'm going to have to cut this strip again in a minute. Okay, because that's starting to get too long. So there we go. Put that on there, and then we'll just feed this bit through. Now knock it down another notch. Now remember, because we're doing ravioli, we're going to want this quite thin, alright? So, because obviously it doubles up. This is going to annoy me the crap out of me, I'll tell you. It's because I'm doing it left-handed. See, I'm sort of pulling the handle away from me. So, again, just going to slice that. goes. Right, make sure plenty of flour on it. And so it's just a matter of going through, keeping it well floured. And I think we might go for one more setting. Okay. So you get the general idea. We're just going to keep rolling this a couple more times. We want it about 2mm thick, if that. Okay. And then we'll be ready to do the ravioli. So that's our sheet rolled nice and thin. Now we're going to need to just prepare our filling. Okay. Now for that we want some mozzarella. Now if you can get burrata, which is a buttery mozzarella, then get that. We just had to get whatever mozzarella we had in Tesco's. So all I'm just going to do, I'm just going to drain them off, put it in there, and I'll show you what we do with it then. I've just realised what time it is, and we are doing Italian. So we're going to have the old pecorino again. Okay. 2019 Tesco Finest, and it is a nice wine. Okay. So let's have it in my Venetian style glass. When we were doing medieval, it was like my medieval style glass, and when we're doing something else, it was like, oh, it's my so-and-so, which is like Venetian. Very nice. So, and like I said, drain off the mozzarella. Okay. Chuck it in a bowl. Now you want about, I think it was about 600 grams for this, although I've adapted this recipe slightly because this was to make large ravioli, and we're going to make little ones. Alright, got to be awkward, don't I? So first off we need to just break our mozzarella up because they are small ravioli. Okay, so I'm just going to break that up. Now I've also weighed out some grated parmesan, right? 50 grams approximately of parmesan, fresh grated. Okay, and we're going to mix that in with this. And so the filling is going to be a mixture of these two cheeses, but we are going to be covering them, if you like, after we've cooked them al dente. We will be cooking them, or rather we'll be sort of tossing them in a buttery sauce flavoured with rosemary and pine nuts. Excuse me. That might have been the beer I gave you. So that's my mozzarella mixed up in there. Okay, now by rights you might want to keep your pasta covered. Certainly when we start making the ravioli, I've got a tea towel here ready to cover them. Right, where's me parmesan gone? Oh, there's me parmesan. Couldn't find me parmesan. Right, so I'm going to chuck that in there with that, and we're just going to mix all that through. So what we will do is we'll pinch off bits of this to go into, not over there, thank you very much, into the ravioli. So let me just get that put over there, wash my hands, get prepared, and I'll show you what we do to make the ravioli. Okay, so I've got my ravioli mould. I've just lightly brushed it with some flour, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my thin strips of ravioli dough, and I'm just going to lightly press it so the indents are in. Okay, to be honest, my pasta machine hasn't quite made this wide enough, but we should still be alright. We'll see how we go. Right, then I take some of my mixture and I take a small little pinch, okay, and I just press it down into each little dimple. Alright, fill your dimples. So we just go through, fill in each one like I'm doing. Like I say, this isn't quite wide enough, this strip, so I'm half tempted to move it all over and just do one strip at a time, to be honest. But we'll see how this first batch turns out. Now, don't let it go over the sides, because we will be needing, obviously, to stick a top layer on. Okay, so let's finish this one off. I think we've got a little bit too much in that one. Take a bit out of there, put it in that one. Now, come here. What we're going to do now is we're now going to brush around the edges with some water, okay? So, and that will be our glue, as it were. All right, so just brush along them edges, and don't forget, it's not just around the outside, okay? We've got to do all the bits in between, because obviously we're going to be cutting these up into little packets of joy. Bloody hope you are anyway. Alright, so just getting that through there. Now, having made sure all our edges are nice and wet, we then take a second strip, okay, and we lay that over the top, okay, making sure it stretches all the way over. And then I've got a little roller here, and what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to lightly roll over it. And what you'll find actually with this particular mould is, so we don't stick to it, is that it actually partly cuts the ravioli up for you. So there we go, I'll take that bit off of there. That bit hasn't quite done there. Okay. And now we should be able obviously didn't flour them enough. Alright, let's start to come out now. Right. Thought for a minute that was a ravioli, can't go wrong. So anyway, you can see the idea. We've started to get our ravioli. Okay, now we want to make sure these stay nice and floured. We might cover them with a cloth in a minute when I get the others out. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. We're just going to carry on making ravioli. Next time, remember to flour your mould. I might show you when I get one that works right. Okay, so I've got a batch there done. I'm just doing another one. Still got plenty of pasta. Unfortunately, I didn't flour. This just shows you why it's important that you make sure you flour this dough, because unfortunately some of these sheets are sticking together. Okay, so without re-rolling loads, I'm not really sure I'm going to have enough, but there you go. So another lot gone on there. The other thing to watch is your roller starts getting a bit wet, so therefore it starts getting a bit sticky, and that don't help. So let's get rid of the excess down there. So the beauty of this dough is, of course, I could put it all together, put it back in the fridge, and then I could make some other pasta from it. Don't have to be ravioli. I could re-roll it. I could make some linguine because my pasta machine lets me do that. Right, and it definitely helps if you flour the mould properly. Right, so there you go. I'll just see if I've got enough there to do one more. Otherwise, that will be it. Well, making the ravioli bit. Right, so ravioli's all made. Got a plate full there, ready to go. I put the rest of the spare dough that I didn't use. I laid it together, wrapped it and put it back in the fridge, and I should make some stuff with that. I had a little bit of the cheese left over, and again I've just wrapped that up in the fridge. We'll use something for something else. Now I'll put on the back burner, you can't see there, some water to boil. Now you just need to add a little bit of salt to that. Okay, and we will cook the ravioli in there, but we're not going to start cooking them until we've made the buttery sauce that they're going into. So I've got here 60 grams of unsalted butter. I've got just about 30 grams of pine nuts, and I just need to do some thyme leaves. Okay, now I'll put them, what I should do, no, sorry, not thyme leaves, rosemary. What I should do is I should just pick off the leaves and I'll just chuck them in with the pine nuts because they're all going to go in together. Okay, and so what we're going to make is like a butter sauce that's flavoured with rosemary and these pine nuts, and when the the ravioli are cooked, we will be sort of gently tossing them in this buttery mix. I mean, that could be fun. This could probably be when all the ravioli will fall apart and go really bloody well, but who knows. So you'll probably want about a tablespoon of rosemary, but it's entirely up to you how much you want to put in there. Okay, I'm just going to put a little bit more in there with them. So while I just finish that off, I'll put my butter in there, and I'll start it melting, and then when we're ready for the next bit, I'll let you know. But we're getting there now. Right, water's not quite ready for cooking the ravioli yet. My butter's almost all melted, so I'm going to chuck in my rosemary and pine nuts to give them a chance, obviously, to get the flavour going. Right. You could, if you wanted, toast your pine nuts beforehand, but I decided not to toast my nuts. Okay, I thought we'd just smother them in buttery goodness. So, just going to let that cook. There's not an awful lot there, but I mean, essentially, it's not, you know, a huge sauce. In fact, you could almost, if the ravioli are a little bit delicate, put the ravioli onto a plate and then sort of spoon the sauce over them. We'll see how we go. Alright, we'll see how they cook. So, I've got some plates ready for ravioli on the hob there, ready to whatever. I've also got some parmesan and my grater ready. So, once we put them on the plate, we'll then just give it a little bit of grating of parmesan over the top. We'll have a swig of pecorino. Very nice. Wife's on Prosecco. So if I'm lucky, I'll finish this bottle off before she decides she'll keep the Prosecco for tomorrow and help me with this one. Although she might decide she keeps on the Prosecco and tries some amaretto. She sneakily had some amaretto last night. Oops. Sweating. A bit warm in here tonight. Got the door shut. Not very nice out. Well, it's a bit nicer today, this afternoon than it was earlier. And anybody who thinks it's bonfire night, the amount of fireworks are going off outside at the moment, although it has quietened off at the minute. Having a COVID friendly trick or treat. I.e. they don't get to trick or treat you But the wife decided to put some stuff out front with a pumpkin in the window, because our local community said if you put a pumpkin out, they'll find a pumpkin and expect to pick up some sweets from that you've conveniently left outside. Which, good job it stopped raining, because otherwise they would have been a bit soggy. But yeah, so quite a nice little touch really. Meant the kids got to go trick or treating, but didn't have to go knocking on doors. And then of course Boris has now finally said next Thursday, month's lockdown. Except not quite a lockdown, because schools will still be open, universities, colleges will still be open, and actually work will still be open unless you can work from home. So not really a proper lockdown, but there you go. I'm going on a bit in a minute. I'm just waiting for this all to cook through. I'm still waiting for my salted water to come up. By the way, a little tip for you. A lot of people, when they cook pasta, they go, oh, you put a bit of oil in it, it stops pasta sticking together. Well, it might do. But then when you try and toss it in some sauce, what does the oil do? Makes all the sauce run off, so you don't get to coat it. So don't put any oil in there, all right? If the temperature's up and you don't whack all your things in all at once, you will be able to get it out, won't stick together, and your sauce will go on it. So, turn that heat down on that, carry on cooking that through, wait for that. We'll wait till we're ready to cook ravioli, and I might show you. We might cook some first case it's a disaster, but we'll see. Okay, so the buttery sauce is sort of bubbling away, my water's bubbling away, so let's toss in some ravioli. Okay, and like I said, we don't want to do too many at once, otherwise the temperature drops and you end up potentially getting the pasta sticking together. Alright, so just toss them in there. Where's me slotted spoon? Okay, now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on the plate and I'm going to pour this sauce over, because I suspect if I try and put them in there, they're all going to break up. Alright, so it shouldn't take too long. Okay, you want your pasta al dente. Cheers, Mr. S. My Italian friend. Right, let me whip these out. Oh, that one fell in. That one didn't want to come out yet. Right, so there we go. So there you can see, first batch out, nicely cooked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on cooking these, all right, and then you can have a look when we come to add that lovely buttery goodness at the end. All right, oops, I think that one's just falling apart. That might be fun, boiling that one up. These two are stuck together. Get out, dirty little buggers. Right, so catch you a bit later. Right, and there, whoops, we have our lovely green pasta ravioli with mozzarella, flavoured with pine nuts, butter and rosemary. Very nice. Be careful, a lot of butter on that. Alright, so don't get it everywhere. But there you go. But don't go away. We've got dessert tasting and then a bonus.